You guys watch Yellowstone? Yellowstone is one of the great television shows on TV, but it's one of the great television shows in the history of TV for a number of reasons. It's not just the acting and the storylines. In fact, those are not top of the list. But the cinematography is amazing. You'll never have more grown men that sit around and fantasize. They sit around and fantasize about going out to Montana and becoming ranchers just from watching that show. I mean, that's something that you do with little kids. Little kids will watch Superman and then dream that they can put a cape on and jump out a window. And you don't see it a lot when somebody becomes an adult, but I'm just speaking to the power of this program and how great it was. How great it is. Now, the show stars Kevin Costner. And Kevin Costner does a fantastic job in it. But the show stars Kevin Costner, and Kevin Costner is not the star of the show. It became a problem. He was supposed to be. He was meant to be. He was written in to be. Taylor Sheridan, the creator and writer, designed for him to be another character, came along, Rip. And Rip is the single greatest character on TV right now. Any show. So it's not a commentary on Costner. Like, Costner actually kills it. He's great. Really, really good, really, really strong, plays the role, ultimate alpha male, type A. He's not the greatest character on TV. So what do you do? What do you do if you find yourself in that situation? What do you do if you're Taylor Sheridan or anybody else? Like when Kevin Costner is the star of the show, but you know good and well, if we go into a backroom negotiation, he is not going to be the highest paid guy. He was meant to be. They assumed that he would be. But you got to understand from that perspective, like you'll have some actors that can get their panties in a bunch, as they say, over being written out, or over the writers not taking care of them, or the writers not understanding and respecting the role the same way that the actor does. But that isn't what happened. They meant for Kevin Costner to be the star and stay the star. It was just one of those situations where the character Rip passed him up. It wasn't the writer's plan. It wasn't the creator. It wasn't Taylor Sheridan's plan. It just happened. Now, I'm really illustrating that just in case you're not aware of the show, because it creates for a really tough situation. What do you do when that tide is starting to turn, when you still are the highest paid and you still are the star of the show? Because the contracts were done when you went out and acted, but now you've fulfilled those contracts and you know full well going into the next season, if push comes to shove, right? How do you know who the biggest star of the show is? How do you know? Which one can you not do without, or at least more? Seinfeld. They named it Seinfeld. And you couldn't do it without Jerry. Now, Jerry was the worst character on that show. Jerry was the worst actor on that show. That's not maybe or Chael's opinion. I'm a tremendous fan. It's one of my top shows. But if you look at who has worked since then, who has been hired and handed a check, it's not Jerry. He was the worst of the characters. But you named the show after him, and now you're kind of boxed in. And The Office did not make that same mistake. But the star of that show was Michael. And that's not maybe. And that's definitely not based on work after the fact. I won't use that same example. Nobody has done a worse job of picking scripts, and I do mean nobody. The worst management of one's own career just in choosing the scripts that they have done is Steve Carell. But the show tried to go on without him, and it didn't work. So, how do you know who the biggest star is? Well, who's the one that would cause the most damage if their character was removed? And it wasn't Costner's, it's Rip. I realize that I'm beating a dead horse, but what do you do in that situation if you're Costner and you need to save face? If you want to go down and you want your legacy and the story told correctly, do you go charge more money in the back? Do you make a suggestion to the writers? No, quite frankly, Costner killed it. He was awesome. What you do is you find something within a negotiation that makes it impossible for you to continue. What you do is you get out of the show. And even though that show can go on, even though the legacy will go on, and the awards will be there, and you'll get a big paycheck, and you're still recognized as the face of it, when you know in your heart that you're not the most important character, before it actually comes down to that. And before they do reduce your character, before you do start getting less screen time, before any of that happens, you get out. You get out, and you save that face. And that's what Costner did. And the cowboy gimmick was so well done. I mean, I really would have a hard time in words telling you what a great job Kevin Costner did. It's really hard to explain when my very next statement is he didn't do the best on that show. Ripped it. It's really hard. But as far as Westerns went, Costner was a top character of all time. It's just, the problem is Rip became the second best character of all time. Right, the single best character in the history of Westerns was Val Kilmer's portrayal of Doc Holliday. And, I mean, he even beat Kurt Russell with Wyatt Earp, and he wasn't supposed to. Kurt Russell was meant to be the face of the show. He was the highest paid one for the show. He was supposed to be the star. That's a great example, though, that I'm giving you, where Val Kilmer and Doc Holliday surpassed Wyatt Earp and Kurt Russell. That's exactly what happened here with Rip Costner. So Costner gets up, exits stage left. So Yellowstone will go on, but it will go on without him. Now, this isn't necessarily a lock. Like, his character was very, very important. The Office tried it. They proved they could not go on without Steve Carell. But if you kept Steve Carell and you did away with Rainn Wilson, I don't know that the show would have gone on. I don't know that it would have made it more than a season or two. It would have been very different. So I don't want to undermine what Costner did, but I do want to tell you that this is what he did, and this is why he became impossible to work with. He saw the writing on the wall, but he took that gimmick, he took the Western and cowboy gimmick, and now he's gone over to his own film called Horizon. And Horizon's excellent. It is one of the better Westerns made. Now, you don't see very many good Westerns. And you can always test somebody by knowing where they're at. Like, if they want to bring what's the greatest Western ever, or they want to say like a John Wayne movie, even though the filming and the writing and there was this terrible time, if they do that for nostalgic reasons, you just kind of let it go. But when they modernize themselves and they come forward and they'll tell you, and the most decorated Western movie of all time, the one that's won more awards, had more acclaim, and was up for more nominations than any other film, is called Unforgiven. And Unforgiven is inexcusably bad. It is absolutely terrible. And it's terrible for one reason. People don't watch Westerns for any other reason than the draw. There is no other way. Now, that includes John Wayne's. You're not looking for the lines. And as much as it's the lines that stick around, you're looking for the draw. If there's not a six-shooter and there's not a draw, you are disappointed. And the entire time you're watching a Western, anything they're doing in between the six-shooter and the draw is just filling time until you can get to the next draw. So every draw that they had, and I do mean all of them, 100% of the action scenes in Unforgiven were done in the dark. And it was so dark, you couldn't see the draw. And it was stunning. Like, there was nobody within the Academy that had the courage. Siskel nor Ebert had the courage to call this out. It was terrible. Little John's character wasn't worth a damn. Clint Eastwood's character wasn't worth a damn. The only thing in there besides dirty clothes, a little bit of whiskey, and some horses, the only thing that makes a Western that anybody wants to see is the draw. It is the quick scene. It is the hero versus the anti-hero. It is the white hat versus the black hat. That is where the expression white hat versus black hat came from. It's from Westerns, and it comes down to the draw. So when Unforgiven is filmed in the dark, it's garbage. And they should have called it that. They truly should have had the courage to come out and call it that. So when I tell you that this show Horizon is one of the best Westerns made, and it's one of the best Westerns in recent memory, it doesn't get met with a lot of competition. They just don't make many Westerns anymore. I don't know if that's hard to do. There's a massive audience. Most of them get done wrong. And it's good. It's fun to watch, and it's really good. And even when they come down to the quick draw, they did it real. Like the story of the OK Corral, that's a lot of fun to see. But that actual incident would have been between 5 and 7 seconds. 5 and 7 seconds in real life. Boom, 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 boom. It's over. And they made movies about it. They made it last 40 minutes in film before. It's glamorized. It's one of these stories that takes a long time to tell. And there's all these different characters. And this guy said this, and this guy looked this way, and this guy drew first. And I mean, it's one of those situations. But the bottom line is, a gunfight is really fast. And in the movies, they're very, very unrealistic. And Kevin Costner gets into one gunfight in this movie, and it's very real. He shoots the guy. It's not a headshot. He shoots him in the body. The guy keeps coming. He's got to shoot him 3, 4, 5 times to put him down. And that's realistic. That's what it would be. It doesn't change it. Like, you go back to Happy Days when Fonzie got in a fight, it's one punch and it's over. Like, it doesn't matter how realistic it is. If your hero in the gunfight is met with tremendous resistance to the point that he gets the drop on the other guy and he's got to unload the entire barrel in him to put him down, it's kind of hard to make him the hero of the movie. And I tell you this because it's the first movie I have ever seen that I would give 2 thumbs up while not recommending it to you. It's the first movie ever that I could sit around and tell you how great it is, and my final analysis is don't watch it. Why? Because they didn't know how to end it. If you don't know how to end a story, don't start a story. It really is as true as that. Like, this thing it's a giant middle finger to the audience. It was one step away from having to put an epitaph on the screen that somebody has to actually read. You ever seen when a director has to do that when he doesn't know how to get out, so he just ends it, he fades to black, rolls a credit, and then he puts it on the screen? 10 years later, Joe married Sally. They had 2 kids, and they live in Omaha. Like, have you ever seen that? If you don't know how to finish a story, don't start one. Horizon ends in such an epically bad way, it's not even open to interpretation. I couldn't even tell you what we're supposed to make believe happens. In fact, our star, Kevin Costner, fires 3 shots into a direction we have no idea, and they get off the screen. We don't even know if he wins or loses, and he was the star.